You wanna guess the color of my underwear. You wanna know what I got going on down.
Hello, my darlings. Welcome back to Front Row Confidential Edition with your lovely Audrey Charlyes. This is Season 2, Episode 11. And today we are doing something a little different. No scandals, no exits, no drama. Well, actually, there might be a little drama. There is always drama in fashion. Today, I want to take you on a world tour. 4 countries, 4 fashion houses, 4 completely different stories about what it actually takes to build something that lasts. Not a moment, not a trend, a legacy. We are going to Paris for Dior, to Florence for Gucci, to New York for Ralph Lauren, and obviously to London for Vivienne Westwood. 4 founders, 4 vision, and 4 brands that are still very much alive and doing things right now in 2026, each in their own completely different way. So buckle up and let's go. We start in Paris because of course we do. February 12, 1947, a man named Christian Dior, shy, superstitious, born in Normandy, trained as neither a fashion designer nor an artist, but somewhere beautifully in between, opens the door of his new couture house at 30th Avenue Montaigne. He has 85 staff. He has a collection of 90 looks. And the editor of Harper's Bazaar walks in, sees what she sees and says, "It's such a new look." And just like that, fashion history is made. The new look, nipped waist, rounded shoulders, full skirt sweeping to the calf, was a revolution. Think about the context. Europe had just come out of World War II. Women had been wearing boxy, practical, fabric-saving clothes for years. And here comes Christian Dior saying, "No, we are done with that, baby. We are going back to beauty. We are going back to femininity. We are going back to Paris being Paris." By the end of that year, Dior fashions made up 75% of Paris' entire fashion exports. In one collection, one man, one show. But here is what makes the Dior story unique. It's not just the founder, because Christian Dior died just 10 years later in 1957, heart attack unfortunately, at 52 years old. Yes. And the house had to survive without him. The solution? A 21 years old assistant named Yves Saint Laurent. And then Marc Bohan, who stayed for almost 30 years. Then Gianfranco Ferré. Then a British designer named John Galliano, who brought theatricality and madness and genius in equal measure, and who eventually crashed out in spectacular and very public fashion. I'm sorry, I wasn't supposed to laugh. Then came Raf Simons, cerebral, minimalist, completely unexpected for Dior. Then in 2016, something history had never seen, a woman at the helm, Maria Grazia Chiuri. Finally, first female creative director in the house 70-year history. And then she brought feminism, activism, art into those ateliers on Avenue Montaigne. And now, baby, it's Jordan Anderson, another Brit. Actually, I think is he Brit or Belgium? I need to check that. He was the mastermind of Loewe, who just debuted Spring 26 Women's Wear show and literally opened it with a documentary about every single creative who came before him. And as if to say, I see all of you, I respect all of you, and now I'm doing my own thing. Kind of a subtle shade, but kind of polite. Dior has burned itself down and rebuilt itself 7 times. And every single time it comes back as something new, but unmistakably Dior. That is the power of a house that was built more than 1 month ago. It was built on an idea that fashion is transformation, that clothes can change how a woman feels, that beauty is worth fighting for. And 79 years later, that idea is still selling like hotcakes. Now, let's move on to Florence. We crossed the Alps in Italy. Florence, 1921. A man named Gucci, who had been working as a bellboy at the Savoy Hotel in London, watching the luggage of the ultra-wealthy roll through the lobby, comes home to Tuscany and says, I can make that. I can make beautiful things out of leather and craft and Italian hands. And darling, he does. He did. First, it's luggage, then leather goods, then the bamboo-handled bag, born out of World War II's scarcity, because leather was ration and they needed something else. Necessity meets icon. The horse-beat loafer, the red-green-red stripe, the double G logo in the 60s, named after the founder himself. A brand so hot that by the 1950s, every celebrity from Grace Kelly to Jackie Kennedy was carrying it. But then, and this is where the Gucci story gets deliciously messy, and we love the mess. The family imploded. Sons fighting sons, lawsuits, embezzlement, a murder. Yes, a murder. Mauricio Gucci, the grandson of the founder, was shot dead on the steps of his Milan office in 1995. Ordered by his ex-wife, Patricia Reggiani. There was even a Lady Gaga movie about it. You cannot make this up. No, you can't. The brand was in chaos. And then came Tom Ford, 1994, an American in Florence who looked at this glorious wreck of a brand and decided to rebuild it with sex, glamour, and attitude. Sharp tailoring, plunging necklines, velvet suits. The 90s Gucci became the definition of aspirational desire. Then Alessandro Michele in 2015, the complete opposite. Maximalist, vintage references, gender fluid chaos, embroidered bees and moons, and all of the Baroque glory. Gucci became a mode. It became a TikTok aesthetic. It became everything. And then Michele left in 2022. Sabato Di Sarno came and tried to dial it back to the quiet luxury era. It didn't really land. Gucci was struggling, and now it's Demna. I know, yes. The Georgian designer who came from Balenciaga, who just showed his debut Fall 26 collection in February with Kate Moss closing a glittering thong dress straight from the Tom Ford archive. Full circle, baby. Hedonistic, body-conscious Italian glamour turned up to 11. Gucci has always been chaos. The chaos of family, of murder, of sex, of reinvention, and somehow that chaos is always chic. Da-da-da! Now we fly to New York, the Bronx to be precise. 1939. A kid is born named Ralph Lifshitz. His parents are Jewish immigrants from Belarus. He grows up looking at the world he doesn't have and deciding he's going to build it anyway. He changes his last name to Lauren at 16. He starts selling ties, not just any ties, wide, bold, aristocratic-looking ties that his employer thought were too much. Too loud, too aspirational. Ralph didn't give a damn. He got back, launched a line called Polo in 1967 and started selling a vision of America that most Americans had never actually seen. The Hamptons, the ranch in Colorado, the Yale bathhouse, the Frobrau horses, the perfect worn-in linen. It was fantasy, but it was fantasy executed with such precision, such consistency, such beautiful stubbornness that it became real. It became the standard. He dressed Diane Keaton in Annie Hall, if you have seen that. He put men in Great Gatsby suits. He became the first American designer to open a dedicated store in Europe, in London in the 1980s. He turned a Rhinelander mansion on Madison Avenue into what women wear daily called the best boutique in the world. And through all of it, Ralph Lauren never chased a trend. He once said, and this is the line that defines him, "I'm interested in longevity, timelessness, style, not fashion." A fashion designer who doesn't care about fashion. That is the entire genius of the man. And in 2025, President Biden gave him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the first fashion designer ever to receive it. He is 86 years old. He dressed Team USA at the 26th Winter Olympics in Milan. He showed up in Milan for the first time in 20 years, and he's operating at pace that would exhaust designers a third of his age. Ralph Lauren is the American dream, the mythologized, polished, perfectly pressed version of it. And the world keeps buying it every single season. And finally, London, 1971, King's Road, Chelsea. A store selling second-hand 1950s clothes and rock and roll records, run by primary school teacher named Vivian Swear and her partner Malcolm McLaren. That is where it started. Not an atelier, not an investor, a store. Vivian, who later took the last name Westwood, had never been to fashion school. She was a teacher. She learned to sew to make clothes for her kids. And then she started making the clothes that said things. Ripped t-shirts with provocative slogans, bondage trouser, safety pins as accessory. She dressed the Sex Pistols and became the official couturier of the punk revolution, which, if you think about it, is the most absurd and brilliant sentence in all fashion history. From that, King's Road shop, which changed names, let's say 5 times, from Let It Rock to Sex to Seditionaries to World's End, she built an empire. But unlike the other houses we've talked about today, Vivian didn't build hers on, let's say, aspiration or heritage or sex appeal. She built it on conviction, on ideas, on the belief that clothes are political and fashion is a form of protest. She went from punk to high fashion in the 1980s, showing at Paris Fashion Week, mastering Savile Row tailoring, referencing the 18th century in ways that felt completely radical. She invented the mini creamy, a crinoline miniskirt that every major designer copied. She put Naomi Campbell in a 9-inch platforms and watched her fall on the runway in 1993 in what became one of the most iconic fashion moments ever. She became a dame of the British Empire. Yes, darling, a dame. The punk who told the establishment to go to hell was appointed Dame Commander by the Queen herself. The irony was not lost on Vivienne, and she never stopped fighting climate change, nuclear disarmament, prison reform, buy less, dress up. That was her motto. She was screaming about overconsumption decades before it became a trend. She passed away in December 2022 at 81 years old, and the house, darling, is still standing, still independent, still privately owned by the family, still run creatively by her husband, Andreas Kronthaler, who has been with the brand since 1989. He showed Spring 26 at the Institut de France in Paris, a cellist on stage, dyeing sunflowers, leopard print, medieval tunics, punk jewelry, completely chaotic, completely Westwood. Vivienne Westwood is the only house on this list that never, ever needed investors to validate it, never needed a celebrity campaign to stay relevant, never needed to reinvent its identity, because the Vivienne Westwood identity was always, I don't care about what you are thinking. And I'm going to say something important with these clothes. That's not a brand, my love. That's a manifesto. So, what do these four houses have in common? At first glance, almost literally nothing. Dior and the poetry of French femininity. Gucci and the glorious chaos of Italian excess. Ralph Lauren and the perfected mythology of American aspiration. Vivienne Westwood and the unapologetic fury of British punk. But dig a little deeper and the thread is there. Every single one of these houses was built by a person who had a point of view so clear, so specific, so utterly their own, that the world had no choice but to pay attention. Christian Dior believed beauty could rebuild a broken world. Gucci believed craft could become a legacy. Ralph Lauren believed in a dream he was determined to make real. And Vivienne Westwood believed that a pair of trousers could start a revolution. And honestly, they were all right. That's the kind of conviction that builds something lasting. Not a marketing strategy, not a private equity plan, not a rebrand, a simple point of view. I'm Audrey Charlyes. This is Front Row, Confidential Edition Season 2, Episode 11. Thank you for being here, and don't forget, the next episode is going to be our season finale for this season. We are not done yet. See ya, my loves.
You wanna guess the color of my underwear? You wanna know what I got going on down there?